just from a dictionary definition, the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. The general desire or willingness of someone to do something, and the force that guides behavior. Now, when we're talking about motivation, we can talk about extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic is that old way of the punishment and reward model. We are motivated to do something in order to get a reward or avoid a punishment. So the example of the extrinsic motivation, something from outside of all of us motivating us, would be that scenario number one with the quiz at the end, and then whoever does the best gets the $500 Amazon card. Now, intrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is the driving force behind behavior that emerges within us. And we do things because we find them naturally satisfying, or because there's learning and growth and there's a value in the process. Now, what we know about extrinsic motivation is that up until recently, we've raised a generation of learners who need a reward or even a punishment to motivate themselves. And I often work with, some of you may identify with this, I often work with early child care educators who were raised in this everyone gets an award generation. And they tell me that it's very hard to be motivated without that promise of the reward. And they'll even tell me that they are scared to make a mistake because they've never been supported in how to learn and grow and be motivated by the learning process, okay? So with extrinsic motivation, it can lead either to people pleasers or perfectionists, or students who simply give up. And maybe that they become class clowns or resort to negative behavior just to have their place in their community. What we're talking about tonight as a component of the growth mindset is how to switch to intrinsic motivation so that for our students and for ourselves, life and learning become their own reward. What the research shows is this is actually a more powerful and enduring force for learning. And it's that feelings of satisfaction and progress, or the knowledge that we're helping other people, that really build this sense of intrinsic motivation, okay? So to kick off tonight, just think about the students that you're working with, or maybe yourself, and what's the difference between extrinsic motivation as a parent or a teacher? How does that feel? And then versus examples of intrinsic motivation, okay? Next, we're going to talk about mindset. So we're just going over some basic definitions as we tie everything together. Mindset is defined by the dictionary as the established set of attitudes held by someone. And in psychology, a mindset represents the cognitive processes. So what goes on in our mind that's activated in response to a task, okay? A mindset is a belief that really orientates us to our life and the way we handle situations. Our mindsets help us spot where opportunities exist, but they can also trap us in self-defeating cycles. And so we probably know that, right? When we're having a good day and we're feeling positive, it's much easier to have that positive mindset. But when we're challenged, like during this pandemic time, when we're stressed, when we have unmet basic needs, then our mindset can switch to the negative and actually lock us in negative cycles. Okay? What we're looking at tonight is this definition of mindset. I invite you to think about mindset as the conversations you have with yourself or your inner voice. And this inner voice and dialogue and relationship that you have with yourself, it forms the basis For one, how you think about yourself. That's the most important mindset to have. What is our mindset about ourselves? From that mindset becomes the foundation for everything in our life and for the way we interact with the world. Now, furthermore, and we'll talk about some of the brain science why this is, our mindset that we have actually becomes the foundation for our children's and our students' mindsets, their thoughts, and their attitudes and behavior. And that's due to some brain wiring and some brain science we're going to talk about in a little bit. Now, tonight we're covering the research of Dr. Carol Dweck, who spent over 20 years at Stanford University researching the growth mindset. And what she said is, for 20 years, my research has shown that the view you adopt of yourself profoundly affects the way you live your life. So first and foremost tonight, I want to help you shape a positive mindset about yourself in a way that can bring positive change to your life and also your role as a parent and as a teacher. Okay, specifically, if we're talking about this general view of mindset, the way we think about ourselves and interact with our life experiences, then let's dive into what exactly is a growth mindset. And to define growth mindset, first we're going to talk about fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is when we have a belief that our basic qualities or the basic qualities of the children in our care or other family members are fixed. They are something we're born with and we can't change, whether that's intelligence, character, ability, or talent. It's all set in stone. And from that place, some of us become lucky, right? We're born with this talent or this brilliance or ability. And then other people, well, sorry, you just don't have it. In a fixed mindset, it's all about this inborn talent without any effort, okay? And the story that we can think about with the fixed mindset is the tortoise and the hare, right? Where the tortoise is like slow and steady and at it, and then the hare's like, hey, I'm gonna be the champ here. And then we know what happens. Eventually the hare falls asleep and the turtle, through its consistent effort, ends up winning the race, okay? So that tortoise example of the growth mindset says that we have a basic belief in our abilities. It can be developed through dedication and hard work. That brain and talent, they're just a starting point. And this view of a growth mindset creates a love of learning and resilience that is essential for great accomplishment. To talk about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset is this slide that has summarized the research, one of the most the pioneering studies in the growth mindset, which many of you may be familiar with. So it was done with 10-year-olds. And so right now I just want to picture that you're 10 again, and you're given a very challenging math problem. You're given a 7th or 8th grade math problem. So you're 10-year-olds, we're in a math class, I'm the teacher, and I give you a 7th or 8th grade math problem. So what Dr. Carol Dweck saw, she kind of saw 2 different categories of students. Some of the students, when they were given this math problem and they didn't know how to do it, it was catastrophic to them. They didn't know what to do, and they ran away from the difficulty. Some of them said, you know what, next time I'm just going to cheat so I don't look like a fool. Other students looked for someone who did worse on the problem than themselves so they could feel better about themselves. And the message with a fixed fixed mindset students is that effort and difficulty make us feel dumb, and we should just give up so we don't look stupid. Now, when you looked at, there's some brain images. With a fixed mindset, that green, nothing is activated. There's no neurons firing in that brain. There's little brain activity or learning happening, okay? And now there was a second group of students, and these students They loved the challenge. They even told the researchers, I was hoping this would be informative. They believed that their abilities could be developed through challenges and through hard work. And so they engaged deeply with the problem and with their mistakes in the problem so they could learn from it and correct it next time. And if you look at their mind right there, their brain with the growth mindset, it's literally on fire from the challenge. And so we would talk about that fixed mindset as gripped in the tyranny of now. That's the way Dweck refers to it. And with a growth mindset, those students are luxuriating in the power of yet. Their learning process, not only does it light them up in the challenge, but the learning process and the challenge actually helps them, their brains learn and grow in the process. So what I'd like you to think about right now, and if we were in a group setting in person, we would be doing a little parent share right now. What I'd like you to think about is, how were you raised? Did you have more of a fixed mindset as a child or more of a growth mindset? And I would say the vast majority of us had more fixed mindsets when we were kids. We didn't like to make mistakes because in that old context, the mistakes were bad. It was like a character flaw or we were dumb. Often what I ask next is, was your individual potential supported when you were a student? Did you have someone in your life, whether it was a parent, a teacher, or a coach, who fully believed in you and helped you embrace your mistakes through your learning process? Or, like most of us, were you labeled and put into a box because mistakes were frowned upon? And when I ask this question, just generally speaking to a room full of early child care educators, was your individual potential supported when you were a student? I have like 1 or 2 teachers who raised their hand. So just recognize that this work on a growth mindset, it's something new for us, and it really is designed to bring healing to our learning experiences, okay? There are some more questions for reflection. You will have the slides. If you want to go through and take this time for personal reflections, you can, okay? The one thing that I do want you to think about, if you think of your experiences in your home or in your school, how did those experiences with either fixed or growth mindsets shape your parenting or teaching practice today, okay? And you know, unfortunately, I can't see the chat, so if you are chatting me, I apologize, I can't see it, okay? If you'd like to dig deeper into the fixed and growth mindsets and look at them next to each other, these numbers line up, okay? And this is another thing that you can spend some more time with at home. So like number 1, in a fixed mindset, it says, my abilities, intelligence, and character are set in stone. But what we know that the growth mindset, and this is the scientific research proves this, abilities, intelligence, and character can be developed. And so brains and talents aren't most important. Dedication and hard work is. And instead of viewing mistakes as bad, it's understood that we all make mistakes and that mistakes are essential to our learning and growth process. In fact, a Harvard Business School grad shared with me, Megan, we're all a mistake. The human race is a genetic mutation. And when we can see that mistakes are woven into our DNA, that the best things come from boredom, from children's creativity, comes from boredom. But the best inventions often started off as mistakes. So I want to give you permission to embrace your imperfections and embrace your mistakes and the mistakes of your children and your students, because they are all here to help us grow. Okay, and again, you can go back and read that fixed mindset and growth mindset right next to each other. Okay, now one of the ways, what we're going to talk about right now, is how we can learn from our growth mindsets. we're going to do growth mindset revisited because this research has been out for 20, 25, maybe even 30 years right now. So there's kind of a second wave of research that has come. And then we're going to talk about growth mindset in education. Okay? What I'd like you to think about is with a fixed and a growth mindset, there may be areas in your life you want a fixed mindset. Me personally, I don't want to learn how to skydive. I have a fixed mindset about it, and I'm okay with it. I also don't really like doing home and car repairs. That's just me naturally. Many of my friends enjoy it. I have a fixed mindset about it, and I don't want to learn how to do it. So when we're thinking about fixed and growth mindsets, keep in mind that all of us are a combination of fixed and growth mindsets, and there's nothing inherently wrong with having a fixed mindset. But there may be areas in your life you actually want to learn and grow in that area. You want your children to learn and grow, or maybe they want to learn and grow, like learning how to ride a bike or learning how to tie their shoes. But we're encountered with a fixed mindset, something we wish we had a growth mindset, okay? So think of that one area in your life, or maybe it's a child's life, where you have a fixed mindset that you want to have more of a growth mindset. And then think about how you feel and how you currently talk to yourself through the situation. And we're going to work with bringing in some more tools, okay? It's important that right now you just accept what those thoughts and feelings are right in this moment, and then begin to think about how can you bridge to a growth mindset with this challenge, okay? I sincerely apologize. Some of you are raising your hand, and I'm sure the chat is going, and just with the sheer number of people, please do know that I can't, because we would be here till midnight, which I would love. It would be so fun. But anything that's pressing, please do feel free to mention it to Jennifer, because Jennifer, just so you know, I can't see the chat right now. So, okay, and then we're going to bring in.
Do you want, I think, can people choose to chat to you directly? Is that an option?
I can't see the chat.
Oh, got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll let you know as they come in.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to bridge into some of those growth mindset tools in a little bit, okay? So this is some ways that you can work with your fixed mindset, and this is a practice that I invite you to do at home, okay? You can go through one of the best ways to develop that growth mindset is actually to take that area where we have a fixed mindset, but we want to develop a growth mindset about it. And you can just work with that inner dialogue that you have within yourself, okay? Dweck says, and you're welcome to read through the questions now, if we want to move closer to a growth mindset in our thoughts and practices, we want to stay in touch with our fixed mindset thoughts and deeds. What are those behaviors? And we also just want to watch and honor, oh, that's my fixed mindset coming up. My son, he says he's 11. He says, you know what? I have a growth mindset unless I'm tired, okay? And that's true for a lot of us. So just honoring those times when the different mindsets come into play, okay? Now, what Dr. Carol Dweck did and her team of researchers at Stanford and other researchers from other universities, what they said is, listen, we've got to go through and kind of do the second wave of growth mindset work, because what they found is a few things. People were calling out growth mindset like it was a product. Like they could just say growth mindset and they would have accomplished it. And while it's great to have that positive self-talk, what she wants us all to be sure is that we know the growth mindset is a journey, right? It is a journey, and it is a way of life. It's not a product. It's not a proclamation. It is a process, okay? Back, say 20 years ago, it was that everyone has an award generation, okay? And what that did is that ended up inadvertently stifling students' learning and growth. And what Dweck said is, we don't want the same thing to happen with the growth mindset. The growth, she wanted to be clear, the growth mindset it's not just about effort and trying. It's about learning. That we use our effort, we use the learning from mistakes. We bring in new strategies and tools so that we can learn. So effort isn't the ultimate goal. Learning is the ultimate goal, and mastery of life skills and developmental learning. Okay, so effort really is this means to an end, and the end goal is learning and proving. So the other thing that she found happening is parents and teachers would get frustrated and just say, oh, that child has a fixed mindset. And so it can be helpful to identify, so we get to know when all of us are in a fixed mindset or a growth mindset place. Identifying a child or ourselves as having a growth mindset, fixed mindset, doesn't mean we're off the hook. So the goal then, again, it's not to identify, is it fixed or growth mindset? It's to help all of us learn. So fixed mindset is not an excuse to not teach ourselves or our children. And as we've been talking about, we're all a combination of fixed and growth mindsets. So this is some of the summary from the second wave of growth mindset research. Okay, we're going to talk specifically about growth mindset research and education, okay? What Dweck has said is that when we change the mindset, we boost the achievement. And the scientific research proves this. What I say is, if we can change our mindset, how can we boost our overall life fulfillment and satisfaction by changing our mindset, okay? With the growth mindset and education, another landmark study is when she had students in low-performing schools outperforming very affluent schools because they adopted a growth mindset. And so within this, students who believe that their intelligence can be developed outperform those who believe that intelligence was fixed, that I'm smart or I'm not. That when students learn through a growth mindset process or program, that they can grow their brains from mistakes and increase their intellectual abilities, just by that belief, they did better. And because I work with early childhood educators and parents predominantly, I definitely apply this to parenting and teaching. When we learn that we can improve and grow into becoming the parents we want to be from our mistakes, we actually can do that, okay? And within that, what they found is that it is process orientated. So having children focus on the process that leads to learning can actually foster a growth mindset and its benefits, okay? As I mentioned, that landmark study, one of the research shows that the top indicator for academic success is socioeconomic status, which is what's wrong with our educational system. And the exciting growth mindset, scientific research says, you know what? Teaching a growth mindset in under-resourced schools can offset poverty for academic success. This is big stuff here. It's very exciting. All right, so let's go ahead and pull some of the things together. Because of that ability to introduce a growth mindset process and program in our schools and in our homes, to have academic success and life fulfillment and the development and mastery of those life skills for our children, it becomes a basic human right for all children to live in places that create growth and are filled and excited with that power of yet, okay? With a fixed mindset and extrinsic motivation, to tie that together, whether it's the way we're interacting with ourselves and our life situations, whether it's raising our children or educating students in our classroom. The fixed mindset and extrinsic motivation, what it inadvertently sometimes teaches children is that they're bad if they make mistakes or they misbehave. And that the focus becomes this overly academic focus that we even see in early childhood, where we really are, the focus is on the test score or the report card. Now, this is, and I apologize, this isn't so much for parenting, this is still education specific, okay? If we think about the growth mindset and intrinsic motivation, which we're all doing homeschooling right now, so of course this is very relevant. Children can think about who they want to be and how they can contribute to society. With the growth mindset and intrinsic motivation, all children know that they're good people and that they can always develop their abilities and learn from their mistakes. And from that, learning and growth are the rewards. Okay? So within this, it's crucial that as teachers and parents, if we understand the growth mindset and its power, that we do everything in our power to unlock that learning in our homes and in our classroom. Now, let's just clear up some other things that Dweck's research said. She really honored that brains and talent are real. We know those children, or maybe ourselves, we have a gift that we are born with, and not everyone is an Einstein, which I think I spelled wrong, sorry about that, okay? Not everyone is an Einstein, not everyone's a Picasso, not everyone's a Michael Jordan, okay? Not everything is a star, everyone is a star, or that it's easy, but what we want ourselves and the children in our care to know that with hard work and dedication, we can always improve, catch up, and even surpass natural talent, just like that tortoise and the hare. And that teachers and parents play a crucial role in providing productive, continuous feedback for student growth and learning. And in just a moment, we're going to share a growth mindset that you can use at home, okay? As we do that, we're going to talk about why our relationship with a growth mindset is first and foremost the most important. The way that we can work with and honor our fixed mindsets and help when there is something that we want to learn in our lives and adopt that growth mindset, that's the best thing we can do for the children in our care. And then we'll go over the growth mindset process and we'll talk about how we can all learn from our fixed mindset. Okay, let's talk about why it's so essential as parents and teachers to adopt a growth mindset. What we know about children's brains is, first and foremost, what Dr. Dan Siegel, the pioneer in the field of interpersonal neurobiology, says is that children's brains are actually more like sponges. That this is the adult brain, fully formed at age 25, but can change and grow throughout the lifespan. And then this is the child's brain. The child, whether it's at our home or in our classrooms, they are literally just sponging and growing and developing their brains off of our brains. So if we have adopted a growth mindset approach to our life and learning, then that's what the children are sponging off of, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is mirror neurons. And mirror neurons, they are neurons that fire when we perform an act and when we see an act perform. So due to mirror neurons, children are just reflecting back our thoughts and emotional states. And to some extent, we're reflecting back our children's as well. But really with our children, those mirror neurons, that's the way they're learning from us. So if we're firing off a growth mindset to them is our way of life, then they're reflecting that back to us, okay? This is what I call the power of teaching and parenting and some of the brain science of caregiving. It's also the responsibility. And we want to honor that for most of us, we were not raised when our brains were growing and developing. We were not sponging off people with growth mindsets, okay? So we're in a very interesting place teaching ourselves as we teach the children in our care. Okay. Let's go ahead now and play around with this growth mindset process. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about something in your life personally you'd like to have a growth mindset process with, or your own child's growth mindset, something that they're learning that they maybe have a fixed mindset about, or maybe it's a student in your care. I'm going to take a sip of water. If you want to just go ahead and read through the growth mindset process there. And Jennifer, could you do a time check? Unfortunately, I can't see the chat or my clock.
Yeah, so it's 7:50 right now, or 7:49.
Oh, perfect. So what I'd all love for you to think about is that real life process, because I will open up after the summary of the process, I'll open up to bring the tools alive. So if you want to think of a scenario that you'd like the group support on and to bring the growth mindset process to. Okay, step number 1, you want to use neutral and gentle noticing of the learning opportunity and really have compassion for everyone involved, because that includes yourself, if there's a co-teacher or co-parent, the child, because everyone is currently doing the best that you can with the tools you have, and we're going to bring in more tools, okay? And then it's also really believing in yourself, the child, and the learning process. That belief is essential. You're going to get curious next and just kind of get in that place of wondering. Wondering what could be done differently. What did we learn last time? I wonder what we could do next time. I wonder what some of the underlying factors and root causes are. So if you think of our kids as these little scientists, they are just wondering, and maybe that 4-year-old developmental stage, the why stage, with that wondering, just get into that place of wondering and why and what and how. Okay? From that place, we're going to bring in new strategies and tools and problem solve and develop solutions. And we're going to make a plan to practice the new tools. And then you do some reflection. How did that work? A lot of times when parents and teachers start to bring this growth mindset process, what happens is, like with a child's developmental challenge, maybe they're working on not hitting or asking or sitting at the table while they're eating. What usually happens is the child masters the developmental milestone, and then the next challenge crops up, right? Or it may be that some of the tools need some rearranging or changing. Maybe there's some pivoting involved. Let's go through the steps. And again, if you can think about that real life, will you pop that in actually to Jennifer, because I can't see it. What's a challenge, something you're working on learning or growing as a parent or teacher, or you want to help a child in your care, something that could benefit from a growth mindset process? And maybe Jennifer, when you get some of those, you could share a couple.
Yeah, we have one already. Okay. Alicia wants to work on growth mindset in all this homeschooling.
Wow. Okay, so that's I totally hear you, Alicia. We all do. We're all working on this. So I guess it really depends. If you can share specifically, the more specific we can get. If you think of one challenge area or interaction with your children, it's that we can work with. And anyone else, Jennifer, you can just share as well as we're going through the process. Okay. So here's what we're going to do first. You want to think of whatever your challenge is. You want to see it neutrally and gently, okay? And then have compassion. Again, everyone's doing the best they can. Some tools that we use to use that. Oh, I'm sorry, it says calm the storm because that's the program I'm teaching right now. I use this in all my programs though, because whether we're parenting or teaching, all we're doing is working with challenges, right? And so the first step is just to have awareness, to see the challenges and also the strengths in the situation clearly. Dr. Becky Bailey of Conscious Discipline says awareness is the first agent of positive change. I would wholeheartedly agree. But unfortunately, what usually follows the awareness, seeing the challenge, is self-judgment, self-criticism, or kind of blaming someone else or becoming resentful of the child. So that's why step number 2 is essential. That compassion piece, especially right now during pandemic parenting and teaching, we're all doing the best that we can, okay? So that's compassion for everyone involved. When you have that awareness plus compassion, then you're in the optimal place for that positive change and to bring in those new tools, okay? So this is the first step of the growth mindset process. You just want to see clearly what the situation is and then try and let go of judgment and have compassion for everyone involved, okay? What we're working on with the growth mindset is switching away from praise, because praise, what we say in positive discipline, it's like chocolate. A little bit is okay, but we don't want our children raised on a steady diet of praise, because it is that extrinsic motivator where our children can turn into people pleasers or perfectionists. Instead, we work with encouragement. And encouragement, it replaces both praise and criticism, and it means to give courage to situations. Encouragement can also be used for both positive and negative behavior. So another way to neutrally notice is to use what's called noticing encouragement. Again, there's more information on this slide than I'm able to have time to cover, but I want you to have all the information so you can go back and revisit it. So if you're seeing your life and your family's behavior or your students or your own as a teacher clearly and without judgment of good or bad, to do that, if it's helpful, you can use for your challenge the sentence starters, I see, I notice, I understand. Now, part of the way our children's brains are wired is they need us to connect the dots in life. How many of us have thought about a child, your blank years, you should know this by now? But our children's brains aren't fully developed until 21 to 25. So parenting and teaching is lots of this feedback to connect the dots for our children, to provide neutral noticing so they can see clearly what's going on. They're borrowing that part of our brain. And if we think about it, noticing encouragement, a way to look at it, it's just like playing back a movie scene or becoming a mirror reflection for your child, okay? A real life example of noticing encouragement, one of the parents in my parenting practice, her 8-year-old was going through the house with a broom, and she said, I see the broom in the air. It was like almost knocking, breaking things, right? She said, I see the broom in the air. And he auto-corrected and put the broom down and then set it down, and that was the end of it. Now, it doesn't always work that way, but that example shows the power of using noticing encouragement to reflect back what's going on in our children's world so they can have the dots connected for them, and very often they can auto-correct their own behavior. Not all the time. Sometimes you need to bring in another tool after that, okay? So this is the piece of just neutrally noticing. Step number 2 is up at the top. And I'm saying these as steps, but the reality is with this growth mindset process, you might start off further. And again, I just want to bring you back to what the process, it's this process right here, okay? You might start off with you might start off in a place of needing to really convey belief and trust in yourself and the child. You might get curious. You then might use neutral noticing. This is a very fluid process, and you also might use the tools more than once in one growth mindset interaction. Okay. So we've got that gentle observer, neutral noticing, and noticing encouragement. Now, the second type of encouragement, it is called empowering encouragement, and it conveys faith and belief and trust in the child and yourself and the learning process. And parents have been known to call empowering encouragement magic. And the reason is because of those mirror neurons. If you are conveying faith and trust and belief in your children and in your students, then very often their brains just reflect that trust and belief and faith back, and then they believe in themselves and then they can do it. And again, there's not one, this is a process, it's not about a tool working, but this step in the process of conveying and really believing and trusting and having faith in yourself and your children, it is an essential step because of those mirror neurons and the sponge brain, okay? So if you like sentence starters, and I'm going to share some examples on the next slide. I have faith, I trust, I believe. Some parents and teachers say the best thing they can do after empowering encouragement is actually leave. These are the kids that don't like to have things micromanaged. So you're going to convey that faith, and then you're going to step away and let them do it. Other children actually might not have the skills to do it. So then we're breaking down the process into smaller. Okay, let's get specific what this would be. I have faith, we can figure this out. I trust we can find new ways. I believe we can learn from this mess up. We can learn from this sibling fight. Maybe just saying, we can do it. We haven't learned it yet. I trust we can get through this challenging time, like this pandemic time. I'm a stronger person. I've exceeded expectations. We can just try. We are like rubber bands. Let's expand. Let's go beyond our limits. It's safe to take risks. Or simply asking, what's the worst that could happen? Making mistakes is awesome because we grow. So some of these are very concrete ways to offer that faith and trust and belief, and others are more imaginative, like using imagery or just conveying that it's safe to take risks. So if we're going through the process again, where we are, I think I'm right in the middle. Sorry, I should have had, okay. That noticing and compassion, faith in the child, yourself, and the learning process, and space to grow and learn from mistakes. The next component is to just get curious and to use what's called curiosity questions, which are what and how questions. So this is where you get to go into your place of wondering. So I wonder what happened there. So let's go ahead and, because so many people are doing pandemic homeschooling. So I wonder what happened yesterday that either made it helpful to do school or made it more challenging to do school. And again, this depends on the ages of your children, right? With younger children, I've seen 2-year-olds who use this wondering tool, like they can wonder away. They're very intellect orientated and they thrive on this tool. For other younger children, you can still wonder all you want, but you'll provide them with some of the choices, okay? So that's how it would be used in early childhood. If you have school-age tweens and teens, this can be a really positive tool to just get in that place where it's judgment-free and you're just wondering. I wonder what you'd like to do next time or remember for next time. I wonder if we could try it differently, or we could try this, or I wonder if you could just give it a try. If we could sit here, you can set the timer for 2 minutes, and I wonder what would happen and how much you can get done for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, okay? Another way that you can wonder is through curiosity questions. Curiosity questions begin with what or how. Like, what happens next? What do you think the solution is? How can we work together? How can we fix this? If you have any children who are very strong-willed, are future CEOs of the world, I call them, these are really important tools because they don't want to be told what to do. And they don't even, generally speaking, like choices, but they love to wonder and they love curiosity questions because for them, that's really affirming the intrinsic motivation. It's valuing them as leaders and their insight and their ability to problem solve and even learn and grow from their mistakes, okay? So wondering and just using what or how. After you've noticed, you convey that belief and you have compassion and you wonder, Now it's time to think of some solutions, okay? And one is a problem-solving model that can be used for younger early childhood education as well as older children. And what you do is you just sit down in a calm and connected moment with the child. You can also use this tool for yourself if you were thinking of a personal challenge you might be working with that would benefit from a growth mindset. Now, here's the key. Sit down with your people in a calm and connected moment. When the negative behavior is happening, everyone is slightly elevated and triggered, and then we don't even actually have access to our ability to problem solve to the full extent. So the key is for parents especially, but teachers, this might be beneficial as well. You want to think about just making sure everyone's safe in the moment and staying in your place of compassion, and then circling back around to the growth mindset process and to the problem solving component when everyone's needs are met and they're calmed and those stress hormones aren't coursing throughout the body, okay? And you can return to your noticing encouragement and just say what you see, and then you'd brainstorm all the possible solutions, writing down every answer, okay? So it's like you can get a little clipboard, and you can, the best way to do this with kids is let them start with a problem they have with you. And you're just going to say, hey, let's do some problem solving. What's a problem you have with me? And then you can write it down, or with the family, what's a problem in the family? That way they get a positive association with the tool. And then you literally say, okay, what are solutions? And you might actually even need to Google solutions and kind of define that. That might be helpful. But here's the key with number 3. You write down everything that every family member or student in your class says. This isn't a time for any adult to say that's not a good idea. What you're doing here is saying all learning, all ideas, and even the mistakes are honored here. After step number 3, where everyone, you're all out of solutions, they're all here on the paper, then you work with the children in your care to find that mutually agreeable solution. Parents and teachers usually think, gosh, it's not going to be possible to come up with a mutually agreeable solution, but everyone is surprised, and the thousands of people that are trained in positive discipline also are a testimony to this, that usually it's easier than we think for adults and kids to come up with a mutually agreeable solution. And then you can also use those curiosity questions as you're developing the solutions. And then it is the time to develop a plan and to practice the plan. So you're going to do this problem solving in the calm and connected moment. And then when you have a plan in place, so say it is pandemic homeschooling, you can just go through a trial run where, and it might be fun for your kids if they get to be the parent, because, well, what's a lot of what's going on with pandemic parenting having to be teaching is children's favorite parts of school have now disappeared, and their least favorite parts are still there. So there's a lot of loss of control, as well as I know a lot of children are really, even if they're angry, that underneath that they're mourning and they're sad about the loss of their friends and their classroom, and other kids are thriving and they're happy with homeschooling. So if you have a child though that is having a hard time in that resistance, try that, what we call a role reversal. Let them be the parent or the teacher, and you be them, you be the child and the student, and then kind of act out what the plan is going to be. And then over time, you can slowly introduce the plan in real life moments, and it's okay if it does take time. With this growth mindset process, remember, it's not a quick fix. Sometimes children, they respond right away because their brains are growing, and they're able to just take the learning and the growth when they feel supported, when they don't feel judged, when they feel like they can make mistakes, and they run with it. And that's what we love to see when, classroom and parenting challenges are transformed so quickly like that. But keep in mind that that's not the product, is not the goal, that the learning process is the goal, okay? And then from that, that's when either the mastery has come and then you set the new goal, or maybe you pivot and you return to that problem solving model to kind of tweak the plan. Okay, so this is the summary of the growth mindset process. And what I'd love to do right now is there is a little bit of a summary of different thoughts and language from earlier that you'll have. What I want to do is make sure that if you're bringing a growth mindset alive, whether it's for you or your kids, start by something that is easiest to teach. And do you know what's easiest to teach? When we have the spark. Start with a thing that your kids are really lit up about and that they want to learn how to do. And as a parent or teacher, go through this growth mindset with your very willing participants. Always begin with what you love. Stay connected to that confidence. That due to the mirror neurons in the sponge brain, that belief in yourself and your children, it's really the foundation for all learning. And then as you are going through the process, just make a mental note of what positive parenting or teaching communication tools you'd like to try out. Be committed to the practice because it's not a product, it is a process and it takes practice. And see, as we go back out into our lives and tomorrow when we wake up, one of the guarantees for our tomorrow is that we will make mistakes. So see how you can let go in your own life of that self-judgment and self-criticism and embrace your mistakes for this beautiful learning opportunity and growth, okay? And really that the growth mindset, it is the optimal way. It is the optimal learning and mastery process for everything in life, okay? There's a saying that says like how we do anything is how we do everything. How we learn is the way that we learn. And as you get in touch with that continual learning process as a parent, as a teacher, and really embracing the mistakes and the journey, that you're also setting that blueprint for the way that your students learn or your children the alphabet or master that math that they're working on right now, or how to be kind to one another. So how we learn everything is how we learn anything is how we learn everything. And that the growth mindset process, it really is a human developed framework of the way that we interact with ourselves, the conversations we have with ourselves, how that influences our life interactions, and how that shapes and helps our children develop a lifelong love of learning, which can include academic as well as socio-emotional learning. So let's see. Thank you so much for joining today. Let's see what we're going to do right now. I just want to share a couple invites. I invite you to stay connected on Facebook, and you're welcome to screenshot this. I will send out the slides. Parenting for the Next Generation Facebook group. We're having some phenomenal discussions. There's over 500 parents in there, and we're having some great topics during this pandemic time. And parenting teachers are welcome as well. You're all invited. I email, and I know some of you get my emails, a Sunday message every Sunday afternoon. I send out a weekly email with positive parenting and teaching inspirational tools. And you could go to meganbarella.com to register for that. If you go ahead and register for that, I will add your email as well to the Parenting as a Team free class on Wednesday. So if you want to continue the journey, and if you are a parent, teachers are most welcome as well. We're going to be doing that on Zoom. It'll be recorded, and it's a free masterclass, Parenting as a Team. It's a wonderful kind of segue from this growth mindset work this Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. And if you are interested in learning more about my positive parenting programs and how we can work together, I invite you to schedule a 30-minute complimentary session. And my scheduler is on, if you go to my website, it's under my About page. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Jennifer, let's see. Oh, 8:13. Well, let's go ahead now and take some, oh, shucks. Okay, so Jennifer, do you have some good questions that we could?
So right now, my chat window is so full of so many things, mostly people getting our certificates, which is fabulous. I've invited my coworker, Liz, to handle all the questions. So if you're wanting to type a question for Megan, if you could type it to Liz. Liz is going to wave her hand.
Well, and you know what? Now I can see the chat. And just so you know, for future, With the screen share, I'm learning this too, then you can't see the chat. But now I can see it. Liz, I thank you for being here, but I can actually, let's see, process than others. Okay, let's go ahead now and take questions. You can email them to me, or if you're already set up with Liz, specific questions. And remember that when you share, it's so helpful to other parents and teachers because we get to see the real life application. A challenge substance wet himself while having screen time, then put it down and coming back to it when anything else, he has no problem. Okay, so here's the reality with everything going on right now is that it's very interconnected.
Megan,
right?
could you repeat the question because we cannot see it?
Okay, a challenge, a stepson, he wet himself while having screen time. And then put it down and coming back to it when anything else, he has no problem. I think I'm getting that question. So when a child, like if they, don't make it to the bathroom, okay? And what is the interrelated is right the screen time because the child is really distracted. So that's one of the things that, and I'm gonna share different ideas. It's not to say that this is the order that you would wanna address them, but just honoring that if he's not currently like having pottying challenges, making it to the bathroom, that it probably was, we all get so engrossed. Like how many of us as adults have been like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, let me look this up, oh, I forgot, So it's a big distraction. So that's something that you could just use the wondering tool. Oh, I wonder what was going on. And this is where especially, thank you so much for sharing this, is that this is something that children can feel embarrassed about. So by bringing a growth mindset approach, you're just going to neutralize it. You're going to have compassion. Hey, we're all doing the best that we can. And you can just, for this, depending on how sensitive, some kids, they don't really care if they pee on the floor. Other kids are self-conscious about it, okay? So the first thing is to just be like, maybe in that moment, if the child's upset, you're not really going to talk about it. But maybe the next day, when you're kind of engaged with something, it's that calm and connected moment, you're just going to do some wondering, I wonder if it was the screams, you were just a little distracted. And sometimes when it's sensitive stuff, or even with really strong-willed kids, when it's that calm and connected moment, when I wonder, I'm either doing something else because they feel pressure when all like the focus is on them around a sensitive topic, or I even kind of like say it kind of quietly, like, oh, I wonder what we could do next time, or I wonder. So that one, thank you so much for sharing that. It really does depend on the ages of the child and if it's something that's kind of ongoing. But the entire growth mindset, I think, really can work. You would then work with the child in that calm and connected moment to set up a plan for next time. And the funny thing is with that problem solving model that I shared, where you sit down, you brainstorm solutions, sometimes parents and teachers joke because they get really excited and they want to do the whole process. And then the child, the first thing they say is like the best solution. Everyone agrees. And then it's like, it's over and a done deal. Okay, so that the child may simply say, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom next time. I'm going to go to the bathroom before screen time. And then it's done. Or you may go through the whole process, okay? Just be prepared with that situation and anything else with children is that we set up the plan, but the plan is probably our priority, not the child's priority. So it's up to us to give those neutral, compassionate, sending the message of confidence reminders. Oh, hey, or using curiosity questions. Oh, hey, what did we agree about with screen time in the potty? Oh, remember, it's almost screen time. What are you going to do first? Okay, so thank you for sharing that because that can be a more sensitive issue.
Hey, Megan, I have a question that I can read out for you if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So there's a woman whose daughter takes longer to process than others, and she gets discouraged when other kids are answering first. So any tips for helping this parent with her daughter not feeling like a failure when it comes to school?
Well, right. So I guess into going in some of the advocating is, you know, some of it sometimes is behind the scenes, right? Like if you can go with a growth mindset approach, and is there any time, like, I don't know if it's possible or not, but if you can get access to the topics first, because part of this is honoring different learning styles and really also celebrating your child's learning process. And a lot of times, like I'll tell kids, you are a thinker. You take your time and think things through. So sometimes with that noticing encouragement, we're not necessarily saying like, oh, good, or we're not praising it, but we're honoring the child's strengths in the situation. And that can be also conveying that confidence and that belief and the trust. So that would be the kind of two things interrelated. Or three, you want to notice for your child what you see. And you want to get into a place, because when our children are struggling and we care about them, and we also know that like they are working on this. And in the old way, we would say, oh, this child is working on this. Well, this child just, and it feels even icky to say it, but this is the old mindset. Oh, that child just isn't as quick of a learner, or maybe that child isn't as smart. That almost brings me to tears saying that. That's totally not the case. The child just needs more process time. So noticing the strengths in that situation and reflecting it back to your daughter, getting in a place of your confidence in your child, because when we want to protect our children, sometimes we put them inadvertently into a little bit of a victim role, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry you're experiencing this, you're learning from this. And then honestly, I would do whatever you can, because she does have a different learning style, and because you have this ability. I don't know that the teacher is available right now, but you could see, hey, can I get the questions in advance and give her some time to think about it, okay? With a growth mindset, part of it is really honoring the diverse learning styles, okay? I hope that, not to say that you will use all of that, but I hope I gave you some things to work with. Oh, and also asking your child, so hey, what would make this more positive for you? What would help you learn? And she might say to you, not doing it. I don't want to do it, okay? And that might be the reality, and you can just kind of affirm, okay, you don't feel that way, but, and then what would be some things that you can have, okay? Sometimes when we ask questions and we wonder, our children give us answers we don't really want to hear, okay? And then if you can just kind of use that noticing and reflect back to them, that's just their experience in the moment. It's amazing to me how much a fixed mindset is part of our cultural experience. I've done my best to adapt a growth mindset in the areas that I want to learn. I do my best to instill in my son that anything he puts his mind to he can learn. And yet a lot of his language and a lot of my language when I'm stressed is still a fixed mindset. And we just honor that as part of the growth mindset process, okay? Another question, let's hear what.
Before we get to another question, it is just letting you know 8:22. A lot of our people are wanting about their certificates. Just wanted to remind everyone who wants a certificate to please chat me, Jennifer Wolf, your first name, last name, and your email address. I will work on getting those certificates made and sent to you in the next couple days. So please go ahead and chat those, fill up my chat window. I'll save that and get it to you. And please do that right now if you can, to make sure you're here the whole time. Thank you. Do we have time for one more question, do you think?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. This is a good question. Another question. Okay, what to do when stepson comes back from his dad's with an attitude, okay? And an attitude, I think, towards mom, okay? And those of us, I'm also doing co-parenting, okay? So this is a very common thing. And what we want to really honor the triggers in this situation, because for most of us, when this happens, well, the first thing that might happen is we know where the behavior is coming from. That it's very possible in this situation as well that the behavior is modeled. So that child just being a little sponge, just those mirror neurons, it's like bad attitude is just mirrored back with bad attitude. And so honoring that as the other parent, that's going to be a trigger. That's going to be stressful. So making sure in those calm and waiting for the calm and the connected moment to talk about it, okay? The other thing that might be going on here is the child is just genuinely struggling with the transition coming between homes, and it's coming off as bad attitude, but really the child is just, in their way, they're frustrated. They're trying to make sense of the transition, and they may also be missing the other parent or missing aspects of the other parent's house, or trying to figure out, oh, wait a minute, I do this at dad's, I don't do this at mom's, or I do this at mom's or the other, whatever it may be, okay? So within that when you work on this, it's really important to have that calm and connected moment because it's a very triggering situation. Then really going through the process. Like I noticed when you come back from this parent's house, sometimes you talk like this and you can kind of be funny. You don't want to be sarcastic. You can kind of be funny and like pretend to be the child a little bit. And then you can just go through, just think, you can convey that unconditional love and faith and trust. And then part of this too is focusing in the Parenting as a Team. We're going to talk a lot about this. So if you can join us on Wednesday, focusing on what you do want to see, okay? And also focusing on what you're teaching. And so in this situation, you know what the main challenge is and what the root is, and thus what you're teaching. Are you teaching that, like, is this an ongoing thing that the child is more disrespectful to you than the other parent? Or is this, and if that's the case, then maybe, supporting your assertiveness development? Or is this, sorry, I started reading comments and I got a little distracted. Honoring what you're teaching. So are you teaching that the child has respect equally for both parents, or are you teaching the child more self-regulating activities that they can do to transition from one parent's house to the other? So whoever shared that, I'd like you to get clear on what you're teaching. Has to learn to be yeah, exactly, right? So the child is also learning to be two kids at once, right? One at the dad's with the dad rules and one at the mom with the mom words. Oh, I see. And the child is also using more bad words, kind of like swear words to the mom, okay? So if that's the case, you're gonna get clear on what you're teaching, and it sounds like also just what your rules are. But the thing is, so the child is learning. The child's learning appropriate time and space to learn certain words, and also how to have respect for the parent. And yeah, there's a lot of learning going on there. It's challenging for the kids going back and forth. And so you will just share in the calm and connected moment, this is what I'm hearing, and I wonder what's going on. Are you just forgetting that you don't talk that way? That's when you want to like see the best in the child, convey the belief and the trust, and just get really curious, like, what's going on for you? And there's a lot of like negative power can come from the words. Maybe the child can learn, maybe it's about learning some substitutes that they could use instead. Like what's that? I won't say the swear words, but they're not, kind of the most simple ones like darn it and heck, and maybe, these are my expectations. But keep in mind that even in this situation, it is a learning process. And the more that, and again, whether it's a child that isn't making it to the bathroom or a child swearing at their parent, I want to honor for you as parents or teachers, these are triggering scenarios. And that's why that calm and connected moment is possible. Using is important. Not to talk about the kid and try and do the teaching or the disciplining when the child is saying swear words, right? That's not going to be productive. That's probably going to be pretty fixed mindset. And just honor it would be that way for any of us. And so finding the calm and the connected moment, stating neutrally what you see, having compassion for yourself and the child, but also believing in yourself and the child. And part of this belief is really you, for the mom here, believing in what you're teaching, that this value is very important, this skill for the child to have right now, and also having compassion that the child is doing the best they can in that moment. And then you would sit down, you would really just go through with everything that you're sharing. There might be things to add or change, but it is just going through the process. So even writing it down, if you look at the slides and kind of go through, and taking that time, I know we're getting close to 8:30, and I can tell I'm not getting as articulate towards the end. I kind of start to ramble a little in my explanation. So Jennifer, did you want to? Yeah.
Are we ready to wrap up, do you think, Megan? There's a lot to say, and I do want to make sure that you're able to contact us or contact Megan with further questions. Megan, are you able to chat in the in the chat window to everybody your contact information so they can get in touch?
Yes. And what I'm gonna do two things. So we'll end with, you can look at my website right here, and it should have a pop-up. And I also, on my About page, you can contact me directly. I thank everyone for being here tonight, for having a real growth mindset about the technology and having all these people on board with us, and then all the sharing that we did tonight. And I just want you to remember that this is a process to help you and the children in your care realize your fullest potentials, and keep in mind that that fullest potential for you and your child, it is limitless. We don't know what the fullest potential is, and we work on realizing our fullest potentials by working with our everyday mistakes. So do come out and join Parenting as a Team if you'd like on Wednesday, and there's my website right there. Great, thank you. Jennifer, anything you want to say in closing?
Just wanted to thank you all for being here today, and thank you for, as we figure out technology, this recording of our, just one moment. This is something I learned during here. There we go. All of this presentation will be available online in the probably in about a week or two. We have to make sure it's all worked out, and those will be available on beavertonlibrary.org/parents. That's beavertonlibrary.org/parents. So you'll be able to access the link to this training, as well as all of the slides that she shared. Those will all be available on that as well. Again, if you need a certificate, please put it in the chat window at this time. If you need to contact me at any time, my name is Jennifer Wolf, and my email is jwolf@beavertonoregon.gov. And thank you all so much for coming here today, and thank you, Megan, for being here. When you get your email certificate in the next few days, there will be a link to a survey for that, or not survey, evaluation of this training, so you'll be able a chance to send in an evaluation as well. So again, my email address was jwolf@beavertonoregon.gov. All right, and I'll put that in the chat window also. So thank you all for being here tonight. Okay. Excellent. So this is to everyone.
Do you want me to stand? I'll stand.
I think I'm going to leave it up just a little bit longer to get everything up here. So I want to make sure I save all these emails that are coming in at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and end the recording though.
Oh, shucks. Yeah. Some people are sending me. I'm going to.
Yeah, you can. So there's a way to, let me just stop the recording. There we go.
They're sending me their email.